let's begin. So, we're going to talk about tarot card number 11. So last week was tarot card number 10, which was the recurrence, yeah? Now, we have number 11, which is Persuasion. On the card, it's beautiful. This is a fantastic, I'll like a spoiler alert. I'll tell you all right away that this is a good card. Yeah, like if you're asking a question, you know what I mean, and you do your lovely little reading and you get your answer at the bottom. Yes, you do your 4 cards and the answer is tarot card number 11. This usually means like, yes, everything is good. Yes, go for it, you know. You do it about a business venture or, well, you shouldn't really be doing tarot readings for business ventures, but let's say you do it for a business venture. Yeah, then the answer is yes, because this means that the law is on your side. This is something very uncommon for a Gnostic person. So you should take advantage of the moments in which the law is on your side, because usually you have more karma than the standard person. Do you know why you have more karma than the standard person? You ever thought about that before?
It's a standard person's not aware of it.
Not quite. Because the standard person usually isn't a fallen bodhisattva. And isn't a fallen bodhisattva means the person hasn't created the soul in a past life and then fallen. Most of the people who come to the Gnostic teachings are fallen. They have been in the teachings, they have risen, and then they have fallen. And so because of that, we have more karma. We have katansia, things like this that a normal person doesn't have. Anyway. So yeah, Gnostics are in a worse condition. Just in case you were trying to think you're better than other people, don't. So, on the other hand, if you got the tarot card number 5 in a reading, it's the opposite of this. To receive tarot card number 5 or even tarot card number 10 in the reading, tarot card number 10 means it's a recurrence, which usually means like caution. Tarot card number 5 means it's karma, which is usually not very positive, let's say. It's usually saying, okay, there's a wall there. You know what I mean? You want to do that? Well, there's a wall there. You know, maybe it's not the best thing to do, or if you are going to do it, it's going to be very difficult and you're going to have to work a lot. This is the opposite. This means everything works to, or tends to your good. Okay, so 11, Persuasion. So upon the card, we have here the Lady Adept, who represents the Divine Mother. Yeah, this is the Divine Mother in the center of the plate. And she closes the jaws of the lion with Olympian serenity. Yeah, the lion represents fire and the animal passions, which we'll talk about a bit later. At the bottom of the plate, we have the wandering bird, which is the Holy Spirit, and he rides upon the Kundalini. Yeah. At the top, we have mind, sex, and desire, the inferior triangle, which we see Kabbalistically is Hod, Netzach, and Yesod. There in the little triangle, which represent those 3. But as they are in the superior worlds, they are now elevated to a point where they are controlled. So these are like, that inferior triangle is what is always against us. Yeah? Do you remember in, was it The Matrix? Where he goes, time is always against us, you know? It's like, those 3 are what are always against you. We are always trying to do something, and the mind, the sex, and desire are what are stopping us from doing that every step of the way. Whereas here, mind, sex, and desire are in the superior worlds, but they're not. Yeah, they're not. They are actually, rather than controlling us, they are now controlled, meaning that they are elevated. So we are actually in a position. This is a very positive position for us. The being is controlling those elements, and things are good for us. Like that thing, you know, was it Footprints in the Sand, where the person talks about that experience, you know, walking down the beach with God, and there's 2 sets of footprints. And when they look back, they see, you know, moments where there was only 1 set of footprints, and they say to God, they say, "Oh, why did you forsake me during those moments?" And God says in his deep God voice, he goes, "My son, that is not when I forsook you. My friend, that is when I carried you." You know, 1 set of footprints being God. And obviously those corresponding to the most difficult points in the life. But that's the same thing. In these moments, yeah, we are carried by the beings. This is a very, very, very positive card, yeah? The work is being done in the sex. The Holy Spirit and the Divine Mother are in motion, are in movement, yeah? The little wandering bird and the wandering serpent are working for us. The Divine Mother has the lion of the law tamed, which is amazing. It is an amazing time for us as a Gnostic person when the law is on our side, yeah? You feel, you know, like there's that sense of joy. I love getting this card because it's just like, yes, you know what I mean? No karma, thank God, yeah? So this is the anti-karma card. It's the Dharma card. It's not even really the Dharma card. It's the not having. It's karma's on your side, which is even better. That's like having the police working for you, you know, as opposed to pulling you over for whatever it is, seatbelt violations, using your phone, etc. Okay, so let's go into it. 11. Samael represents the 11. He says is two unities, 1 and 1, which represents man and woman. Yeah, one who loves more and one who loves better. Man and woman, like that. And he says in this card, we see them unified. Two units become one. And two units becoming one is, of course, achieved only in the alchemy, right? It's fine. Marriage is, of course, one thing. But the actual coming together of two units becoming one is the alchemy. That's what that is. When man and woman join and become one being, one living flesh. That's described quite beautifully in the images given to us by Fukinelli and by Jacob Boehme, and the many authors of alchemical literature have drawn beautiful pictures showing the couple becoming one, their spines fusing, their souls fusing, but always it is a physical connection. Yeah? So the alchemy is a physical thing, just so that we understand that. People get confused a lot. You know, like as I said many times, alchemy now is like it's become a buzzword. You know, like people just, a word becomes a buzzword, meaning it just gets used for advertising purposes. And so you just use it. You know what I mean? The alchemy of fixing your bike. I remember when I was working in coffee, this is like, when I was 17 years ago, right? I was working in coffee and the syrup for our chai was called alchemy chai syrup. You know what I mean? I thought that's a bit weird. You know, as a person who knows what alchemy is. Yeah, alchemy chai syrup. As I said before, in Bangalore, there's a place called Alchemy Accounting. You know what I mean? Yeah? You go there and not only do you find your alchemical complement, the person with whom you can cleft together and become one flesh, but they also sort out your tax. Yeah?
There's a temple out the back.
There's a temple out the back, yeah, exactly. Like was it with a dais? Remember Samael says that the people used to practice on the stone steps of the temple and the dais, you're out looking across the thing, you know, like that. Or dais, yeah. Wonderful. So I mean, it's not a buzzword. The alchemy is the sexual connection of man and woman. In fact, it is this: to unite the masculine and feminine sexual organs and to withdraw without spilling the semen. That's the alchemy. In a nutshell. Yeah. It can be written in many different ways. It can be the joining, etc., but it's still the same thing. It's the joining sexually of man and woman in order to achieve the liberation, or could you say like, in order to achieve mystical ecstasy and esoteric progression and also psychological death and many things. But it's a spiritual, psycho-esoteric exercise. I know that's a lot of stuff to say in one thing, but it's true. It's correct. That's what it is, yeah? But it's tricky because obviously we talk about the importance of, because it's a psychological counterpoint, we always talk in Gnosis often about the fact that the alchemy is the day and the love and the partner. That's fine. But truly, it is actually just the act, if you understand what I mean. But that act won't work unless everything else goes towards it. But when we say that the alchemy, we are referring to the sexual act. Everything else, what do you call it? Every other definition apart. I have heard so many people give me definitions of the alchemy. Oh yes, we are in the alchemy. I'm like, yeah, but you guys aren't even like, you don't have a sexual relationship, so clearly you're not in the alchemy. Just so we're clear. That's what the alchemy is. So, okay, so we're talking here about the transmutation. That's why we have this beautiful little bird here in the bottom. And here, this transmutation, which is the work of the alchemy, this is why they have the little beakers and Bunsen burner setups when you see them. Transmutation is to move the sexual energy, to move the sexual, to release the release the enseminus, yeah, to release the ens virtutis from within the enseminus. It's to remove the force, the capacity, the light, and the power from within the raw sexual fluids, and then release them up and transmute them into the brain and into the superior bodies of the being. Yeah, so we're actually releasing from the raw substance its higher nature. Yeah, we're transmuting a raw substance into a spiritual, esoteric, and energetic nature. And that's what this image actually shows us when you see this little burner, yeah? And Samael explains that this is actually a work of the four elements. That what we're doing is when we're united in the sexual act, when the sexual organs are united, the heat that we feel is the fire. And that fire is actually the salamanders of both the masculine and feminine, the man and the woman. The salamanders actually activate within them. The salamanders of the body. Remember, you have the four elements outside of you, but there's four elements inside of you as well. You have those four elements within your own living being. Yeah, you have within yourself various atomic entities, living entities, like conscious entities. You understand what I mean? You know, even when they study the human body, they realize the human body is full of consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Like when they study your cells, yeah, the human body is full of consciousness. The cells of your body look after you. Your instinctive center moves all the cells in your body, and they're relatively autonomous. It's actually quite amazing when scientists go into the body at a microscopic level and look at the body. They're actually blown away by how much the body is doing without our knowledge. Yeah? The breathing process, the cellular breaking down process, the breaking down and movement of nutrients. Yeah? It's quite astounding how much the body is doing. What is that? That's actually consciousness. Do you understand what I mean? So the body has a level of consciousness of its own, has a level of instinctive knowledge inside of itself to a degree. And so part of that knowledge, part of that, as you said, part of that conscious, part of the conscious substance of our body is the elementals of fire. Yeah. All those that pertain to heat, magnetism, and electricity within the body. Remember, the body has many forms of electricity, not just the brain, but there are many forms of electricity. The whole nervous system works via electricity. People sort of forget that. Do you know what I mean? All of that has the fire elemental within it to some degree or another. So the fire elemental exists within the body. It's important. And so during the sexual connection, the fire element is at its strongest. Yeah? And we have the fire elements of both people. When the spines unite, yeah, coming together sexually united, both our spines are also connected, yeah, then the fire element starts to bubble and boil, and we even feel a feeling of that physically. You know, you feel this heat and this sensation, and that begins to then move or put into activity our sexual fluids within the man and the woman. And this movement, this boiling of the sexual fluids, then passes this process over to the undines and nereids of the body. In other words, the water elementals of your body, then begin to move the sexual fluid. They begin to stir the sexual waters at the behest and movement and cooperation with the fire elementals of the body, if you understand. Which is a very fantastic, beautiful process, that the body works in such an amazing way, under the action of conscious will. Very important. Under the action of conscious will. Meaning this process will not happen unless you work to do so. In this chapter, if you read this chapter in the Tarot and Kabbalah, if you read this chapter, he talks to you about about practicing the alchemy and the work in the alchemy, and he says one must have conscious willpower. It means there must be will in the practice to move the sexual fluid. Oops, we'll leave that for them. So. And by that, I don't mean you have to imagine little water elementals working inside your body. What I mean is you have to be aware of that energy within yourself and be working to move it through the body. And then those parts of your body will move. Just like when you want to move your arm, you don't think about a whole bunch of elementals are moving in your body. You're thinking, okay, little guys, let's get this going. Start pulling those pulleys and work those actions. No. Yeah, you will it forwards. In the same way, working with the body, you begin with consciousness and attention. You move energy up, take the sexual fluid, and you move it upwards. So the water elementals then pass it to the air elementals. Yeah. Someone says the water elementals are tricky. They're fickle, and they'll try to lose the energy on you if you're not careful, because of the way that they are in themselves. They'll try and just make you lose sexual energy in the orgasm. But he said, so you have to put a lot of effort in to stop them from doing that. Then moving through the air elementals. That, as we said, remember, we're trying to take here we have the ens seminis, which is the raw sexual energy, and we want to extract ens virtutis. Oh, this is why I write the board beforehand, so you can actually read it. Oh, gosh. Virtutis, ens virtutis, like that. And so this is that process. So then that sexual fluid, the higher part now, the boiled part, which is the best part, the en virtutis, which is being separated from the raw, is then past the air elementals where it moves up. And the process of condensation, where it actually eventually moves back down to the brain, this moving up is moving up the spine. Yeah, that's what's going on. So it's moving up the spine. The connection here of the fire is where our sexual organs are. And then here, it's deposited within the brain. And some of it also moves to the heart. So some to the brain, some to the heart, depending. But specifically the brain cells to the heart, and also other parts of it go deeper into the creation of the internal bodies. But this process, so this redepositing, like when you see it boils up, then it recondenses and becomes a new substance at the top, is then deposited and taken. That redepositing, that condensation is taken over by the earth elementals in the body. And so that is how the process of the transmutation works within the body itself, assisted by conscious will. Yes?
So is it deposited as brain cells? Is that what it's actually deposited as?
Some of it.
Okay.
There's a lot more in that process. It depends where you read. Samael talks about the creation of brain cells, but he also talks about the creation of the internal bodies.
Yeah.
Which is the same process. And it's the same conscious will involved and the same elementals involved. And, as I'm about to explain, the same mantra. I-A-O. Ignis, fire. Aqua, water. Origo, air. And this altogether, I-A-O, actually is earth. Meaning working with all three, you are first activating fire elementals, then you're acting water elementals, then the air elementals, and then the earth elementals in the process of doing that mantra. You're telling all four of them to activate, again with conscious will, with the action of restraining your sexual, your negative sexual, like the arsenic sulfur, which we'll talk about in a sec, the animal passions. You create you create will that actually then strengthens that process within yourself. You understand what I mean? He literally says that. You're by restraining the animal passions within yourself with your willpower, you are able to then serve this process along with this mantra and this conscious attention. So, yes, you are depositing the brain cells. That's when he talks about this process the first time, that's how he explains it. In this one, he doesn't mention the brain cells, meaning what? And Paracelsus talks about the ens semitis, and we extract the ens virtutis, but he doesn't necessarily say it has to be brain cells. So it's more than just brain cells. Brain cells is one version of that process, but also that process is also the same process that creates the internal bodies, existential bodies of the being, superior existential bodies of the being, solar bodies, and also the same process that begins to deposit something within the heart, the en virtutis in the heart. Just what I mean?
I was going to ask you, so is the en virtutis, that's not the same as the metallic soul of the sperm?
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me. The metallic soul of the sperm? I don't know. We got to look it up. I can't remember. Okay. I think it is, but I'm not sure. I don't want to say yes because I got to know. Yeah. Ens semitis and virtutis comes from Paracelsus specifically. Metallic soul is a different alchemist talking. And I don't know if he was explaining the same thing. You know, the metallic soul, he's talking about, so within the mercury, there is something that needs to be extracted. So we could infer that it's the same thing, but I don't want to say it until I've studied, because I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. Okay, so that is the process of transmutation. That is what a couple does. And that same process, this movement of energy, this constant sparking of the fire, this working, will actually eventually spark the awakening of Kundalini. Yeah, that's the process that will occur if we continue to work in this way. Okay, someone's used that. That as we continue to work, the Kundalini, this is just a sexual fire. It's different. It's not the fire. Yeah, this is just the coming together of masculine and feminine. It creates a fire within us. As the two unite, there's an electricity there. You understand what I mean? There's actually an electrical current that we just usually perceive as like a lot of sexual pleasure, but in reality, there's an electricity. And so when we continually come together like that and restrain the sexual passions, tame the lion within ourselves, eventually we will awaken the Kundalini fire, as long as we're doing this process of willpower as well. However, this will not happen to a single person. This process is not how it works for a single person, because we're not developing those things. What we're doing as a single person, we can use the mantram Hamsa. You can technically use the mantram ERO as well. It's still a transmutation mantram. There's tons of transmutation mantrams, heaps. Yeah, there's Kriyok. I'm not going to show you how to do that because it's pretty crazy. It's the frog one. Hectic. I used to do it with my dad. You like make yourself into a frog like that. It's full on. And then like fill your lungs up as much as possible and then like release with Kriyok. Hey, full on. It's a Chinese Taoist from a long time ago. Very cool. There's heaps of them, heaps of these, yeah? But what we will experience is the sparks of that fire. So what you're doing is you're fanning the flames. And the same thing, when you're together, united with in sexual ecstasy, you're doing that same sort of thing. You're fanning the flames, and you can experience in the sexual alchemy the sparks as well. But it's much easier to experience them in transmutation through meditation. Yeah, the sparks of the cosmic, of the eternal fire. And these travel up the spine. So usually we have this image of the spine like that, you know. These travel up the spine from the bottom of the spine like that, and they provide illumination when they reach the top. So that's fantastic. And a lot of people get confused and do a little bit of this and start to experience the sparks and then think that they've awakened, you know what I mean? I get that actually on the YouTube videos all the time.
That's why people think.
Sorry?
Oh, that's why all these people think, oh, I got Kundalini.
That's true. That's true. But I get contacted by people all the time telling me, oh, I've awakened the Kundalini fire. I awakened the fire by accident. I accidentally incarnated the Logos Samael. I'm going to relate.
What an accident.
Someone sent me an email and said, I accidentally incarnated Samael. I accidentally became Samael. And I was like, oh, whoops. There you go, I'm Samael. I said, that's okay. We'll add you to the other 15 Samaels. There's actually a Samael get-together meetup where everyone can get together and be Samael together. And we're actually going to set up a special wrestling ring. And it's a no rules, and the first one to leave this left standing alive in the ring, he will then be Samael. You know, because he is, of course, the warrior angel of Mars. So we'll throw various, you know, various weapons in, and whoever is alive at the end will be Samael, and we'll all worship you. You know what I mean? You're all invited, sincerely, the 15 people who've contacted me and tell me that they're the Master Samael reincarnated. Good luck, guys. You know, what they don't realize is no one's going to show up. You know, they'll all show up and no one cares. But the point is, you know, yes, this happens all the time. People think they've awoken, you know, they think they're completely awake because they experience a spark of the fire. Yeah, that's it. I have a little spark, that's it, I've awoken. That's not the same thing. This actually is a very long process. You know, it can take anywhere between, you know, 3 to 4 years for a serious couple practicing. In the last days, things are much sped up. I believe this can be done in 2 nowadays, even less, depending on the seriousness of the couple. But Samael usually said 3 to 4 years was the sort of gold standard.
Does that change by virtue of how much a single person has prepared?
100% yes. Samael gives the exact time. He explains, he says that when things were done back in the old days in, he just says ancient times, so you're going to leave that out, time-consuming Lemuria. He said that they would often live separately as monks. And a monk would spend all his time preparing, working with the master, and then he would unite with a Vestal virgin, meaning specifically with a priestess from the temple, and then he would usually, and he said the guru would come and awaken the fire immediately, and it would just happen once. But he said it was all the preparation that caused that process to happen. And then he would then continue to work with that Vestal. Here's the big answer, ready? Because someone says, but wait a second, you need to have one partner in love. Well, he would then continue to work with that particular Vestal until he finished the Hollow Stroke path, just a week later. But he would go through the whole minor path, preparing for that moment. Yeah, and she's already awakened. She's already awake as well. You see what I mean? She's working as well. So yes, 100%. And as another example, Raphael once gave the example. He said, because remember his Kundalini took like 20 years to awaken because he had all that karma and stuff. And he said, because he spent so much time working in the factor of death, psychological death, when he got to the second mountain, his second mountain was very fast. Like very fast. Not the 8 years of Job, but I swear he said...
labors, yeah.
He said the labours were ridiculous. There was
Like-
some number of months.
Yeah, 9 months, like 1 a month.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which
He
is
just
so-
flew through it because the abysses were already clean. It was extremely simple for him because he worked so hard and he got into such a habit of working on the eye, even through the minor path, and then he did so strongly in the major path that by the time he reached the second mountain, he was already pretty much there. And it was very quick and easy for the Christ to finish the process. So remember, preparation, of course. PPP. Perfect preparation.
Whereas I heard someone else 9 years, a year per labour.
See, that doesn't
Pretty
surprise me at all.
Pretty big difference.
Yeah, of course, a person doesn't work on the ego at all. What do they expect? It's going to take forever. The Christ has to do absolutely everything, and they're just kind of towing the line. You know what I mean? having a big cigar. The labours. These labours. They're hard. They're hard labours. The Christ works so hard inside you. I mean, I know we're supposed to be working on this, but it just sort of happens inside. Yeah, of course. Yes, that's exactly how it works. So yes, the more effort you put in, the better the path's going to be. I teach you a secret too. The path's not the goal. So if you don't put effort in, and the being moves you along the path anyway because you're practicing the alchemy and doing all this stuff, you might have to just do it again. What if the being wanted a specific virtue but we didn't put in, Yeah. What if 7 stones are not enough? Well, look what happened to the big guy. 7 stones, they all dissolved. And now he's just got to do the whole lot again. The big guy, didn't it? Worshipped by a very endless like. Anyway, okay, continuing on. So, let's move forward. So, as I said, what we're seeing here in the process of the transmutation alchemy is the 2 fires. So, Samael talks about this in this tarot card. You have 2 fires. So, you have the sulfur, which is the pure fire, the solar fire, and then you have the arsenic sulfur, which is the corrupted sulfur, which is the lunar fire, which is like it's like the black fire, if you understand what I mean. It's interesting. Doesn't arsenic actually burn a weird color?
Yeah,
I think it does, doesn't it?
Green.
Green, yeah, it burns green or something. It burns a weird color. Remember when everyone was... Yeah, anyway. Maybe I'm thinking of anthrax. I can't remember. But, so the arsenic sulfur, yeah, is the lunar fire. This is the Luciferian fire. This is the... Okay, they're both Luciferian fire to a degree. But this is the fire of temptation. You understand what I mean? Yeah. It's interesting because the Gnostics have often been sort of like smeared, is that right? Have had their names smeared in public in old Gnosticism because, there have been sects of Gnosticism, for instance, known as the Sethians, yeah? As in Set, the Egyptian Set, yeah? There were Gnostics known as the Luciferians, yeah? There was the Judicians, the ones who followed Judas, you know what I mean? And people go, what? You know what I mean? The what do you call it? The Christian church go, wow, look at them. They're worshippers of the devil. And yes, the Gnostics often work with tarot card number 15 because the fire is given to us by our internal Lucifer, which is part of our own interior being. And this is the mystery when you're talking about the Christ, that's the mystery of Judas. When you're talking about the Egyptians, it's the mystery of Set or Seth. Yeah. When you're talking about in other ways, it's the mystery of Lucifer. We're talking about Christianity. You understand what I mean? So yes, there are radical Gnostic sects who worked completely with the fire, and people don't really understand them. That's like a mystery upon mysteries. So let me explain that mystery to you. That is the mystery of the fire. It's the mystery of the 2 fires, the mystery of the 2 serpents. Yeah, is the mystery of the fire of temptation and the mystery of the fire that liberates. It's the mystery of the fire that burns your house down and burnt Rome to the ground, and the mystery of the fire that you cook on every single night. The fire that also made the weapons that made Rome the greatest nation that ever lived. You understand what I mean? Across this earth, in the Aryan Age, the Romans are still by far what's the term? Frontispiece, the highest level of society. No one has ever really. It's all been downhill. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? It's all been downhill since Rome fell. Let's just be straight. You know what I mean? I don't think not that it could have been maintained because it was decadent, but I'm just trying to point out the way they lived there. Their roads are still there. I talked about that last class. Remember? You go to Florence and there's still 3,000-year-old roads just everywhere. We build a road out the back, it doesn't even last a day. So, as we said, so you have the lunar fire and the solar fire. Yeah, this didn't exist until the Lemurian fall. Yeah, we didn't have this. We didn't have this. We were like little children. Yeah. In the children, this fire doesn't awaken until they become teenagers. Once they're 14, 15, this fire starts to happen inside. Before that, they don't have it. Unless it gets accelerated by bad media, what's the word? Irresponsible parents. Yeah. School in general, unfortunately. Yeah. All of this gets accelerated. But generally speaking, it's around about the age of 14, when you go 14 to 21, where this fire starts to activate. And we know it activates. We know the beginning of that activation of a Lucifer within children is called puberty. This is when they go through the rite. It's not a rite of passage because we don't do rites of passage anymore. You understand? Does everyone know what the rite of passage in Australia is?
Getting rebar?
A gurney on
Get
a
drunk.
Nope.
gurney on a clothesline.
Nope. Funny, but not quite. It's getting a driver's license.
Okay.
Come on, you all know
That's
it.
degenerated.
You get your driver's license, then you're like, that's it. You can drive wherever you want. You are now a man. That's it. You get your driver's license when you're 17. It's like you can go wherever you want. You're now free of your parents. Isn't that kind of pathetic? Do you remember what they used to make people do? Rites of passage were hectic. They used to give a boy a spear and throw him in the woods and be like, come back in a week. You know what I mean? They used to like, anyway, it's not good. But sorry,
Who's they?
that's the Spartans. The Spartans used to throw the boys in the woods. The certain Filipino ones used to like make the boys put on they have to put on like hands full of giant fire ants, like basically put them all over their body and just sort of stand there and not be a little child and walk away, but just like handle the bites, you know, all this sort of stuff. Now that is a degeneration of culture. Let's be straight. There's no way that the initiates came up with that. You understand what I mean? There's no way that the great guide of humanity said just cover them in ants. You know, like that's just no way that's how it worked. I'm just trying to point out that we just don't have rites of passage anymore. Rites of passage is actually supposed to be about that the person can dominate Lucifer. That's what a rite of passage is. To be a man means ma'an, means to be over or above defects. It means that you can see inside yourself the two fires and you can dominate your own interior nature. Do you understand? That's what it means. It means you know the nature and you can now dominate. That's what a true rite of passage is. We don't have them anymore. Yeah? It used to be, as I said, most of them were related to handling physical pain. Why? Because of willpower. Because it meant if the person had willpower, they could usually fight against their own defects, etc. But we're going to go into why that's not necessarily true when we talk about the difference between serenity, persuasion, and violence. It's the degeneration of humanity to think that violence solves problems. Whereas if you understand alchemical knowledge, you'll know that violence solves nothing. You understand? Yeah, the alchemy is aviolent, it's opposite, it's not violent, it's gentle. And yet it is a gentleness that completely transforms man and woman into gods. So something quite powerful and profound. So I said, to see these two fires, that was the true rite of passage. So when a child, he reaches that age, that starts to activate within them. And between that age of 14 to 21, they start to then become aware. They become aware of the opposite gender. They start becoming aware of life and society and the society that comes with that. Yeah, it all needs to be one thing. A man and woman see their complements, and in seeing them, they see life. Yeah, in our days now, it's sort of more askance. It's like you're supposed to look for a career or something in materialism, which just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's not how it works. And everyone gets confused and they spend all their life trying to find fulfillment in materialism, which is not actually what you're supposed to be doing in that time period. You're supposed to be dominating Lucifer with love. Learning what love is when you're suddenly confronted by this great force that could destroy you if you don't learn what it is. That's essentially what that period really is, yeah? And unfortunately, pretty much no one gets that, and our sex ed in school isn't exactly teaching that, let's be honest. So, anyway, let's go into that a bit more deeply. So, it's quite interesting here that she is really powerful, but she is not violent, yeah? So, as I said, these in the modern day, these rites of passage are all very violent. You know, the boy becoming a man is very violent, yeah? As I said, you guys, the rites of passage of drinking is the exact sort of thing. It's like, you're just descending. In that sense, your rite of passage is actually a signed contract with the Lucifer for him to take over your body. That's what that is. doing all these sorts of heavy drinking exercises is actually giving your consciousness to the Lucifer, 100%. That's what that is. That's insane, but that's what we do, right? So let's talk then about the serenity and love that's in this card, because Samael says that she shuts the jaws of the lion with Olympian serenity. Very interesting choice of words. Olympian, so power, force, and serenity, yeah? So she has a great power, yeah? Power, glory, and triumph through the many ways of love. It's a saying from the great ritual. So power, glory, and triumph, yeah? But this is all through serenity and love, yeah? Rather than violence. Usually when we think of these three things, power, glory, and triumph, we're thinking of fighting, of battle, of overcoming something, of violence. You understand what I mean? What's that joke? Is it? Or is it women dream of settling down, with the perfect man or something? And it was that men dream of making their last stand and dying gloriously in impossible odds. What is that? Men dream of violence. You understand? Full of bloody violence, Even though in reality, I've actually had dreams where I've been in war and I've just screamed and run away, or I pretended to be dead once and a guy killed me anyway. And I remember just feeling like, I wish I'd actually fought. At least if I tried, at least I would feel okay. I remember just it was like the battlefield and we'd lost. I don't know, have you guys read there's a wonderful book called, I can't remember, Musashi. It's the Japanese book. Yeah, it's wonderful.
I haven't read all of it, but...
But you would have read the beginning,
Yeah,
where he's wakes, he starts off just waking up on a battlefield.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely excellent book. But he wakes up on a battlefield and realizes that his side is lost. That's it. It's just he's just half dead, and he kind of stumbles off, finds his friend, and ends up making friends with some grave robbers. But it's I had that same thing. I was lying on the ground and I realized we'd lost, and there was just a guy, and I was like, oh, if I lie really still, though, maybe they'll just think I'm dead. But it turns out they were going around and just stabbing everyone through the heart to make sure they were dead. And I didn't realize till he was right on me, and it was so I just got stabbed and killed. And I remember just feeling so ashamed that I didn't get up and at least defend myself and die gloriously rather than just as a coward on the ground. It was a horrible, horrible dream, I remember the feeling of the shaft going into my heart. It was horrible. Anyway, so that's the end of violence, isn't it? Yeah. So what's interesting here, though, a person, if you notice, a person with love can actually completely destroy some of the most immense violences. The power of persuasion, a very well used word, can totally assuage and destroy hugely violent actions very easily. If you ever met a person who's amazing with the word, really, really good at talking to people, you'll see that they can do that. People are riled up and fighting, and they can just put everyone like that.
The kind word turneth away wrath.
Sorry?
The kind word turneth away wrath.
Yes, that's right. Wonderful. Exactly. Yeah, like Gandhi completely brought the British Empire to their knees. And not just that, he brought the British Empire that was at the peak of its thing. I think that's pretty much the decline came after that. The British Empire, remember when you look at those old maps and everything's pink? Australia's pink, the whole of whole parts of Europe are pink, India's pink, Africa's pink, England's pink. That's because pink for some reason was the colour of Britain. They probably could have chosen a better colour, but... Well, back then, pink was a royal colour like red. But unfortunately, nowadays things have changed. But the thing is, when you were seeing that, that's because Britain was had invaded and taken over Africa and India and all this sort of stuff. And they were brought to their knees by Gandhi, who literally did nothing. He never even drew a sword, and he absolutely decimated them. They had to withdraw from the country completely. And after that, that was pretty much it. They lost hold of Africa pretty quickly afterwards, and they lost hold of everything, and they just ended up with nothing. I could be wrong about that. I'm probably wrong.
They still got on to Australia.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? They still, the Queen was still sort of in charge. I think the Queen was still acknowledged or something as the Queen of whatever, but no one really cared anymore. And they slowly their power declined. But that, I like what Gandhi says when he talks about ahimsa. He says, I want to defeat my opponent by what is it called?
Their sword in
Yeah. Rather than crossing his sword with a sharper sword, I want to rust his sword. With my lack of efforts, and he said, I want to instead of attack him, I want to actually not subvert his expectation, but just disappoint him basically with my inactivity. And it's true. It's like you can't win. Now that's a very interesting thing. So he persuaded the English to leave without ever picking up a sword, and that's immense. You have to. You just need to understand. When I talk about the Roman Empire, the British Empire was the empire at the time. It was one of the last empires around at that time, and it was defeated. If you've ever watched the movie about it, it was defeated by a little guy in a nappy. Do you remember? That's how they describe him in the movie. Wonderful film, very much worth watching. But they got a whole empire, British, a violent, hugely violent empire, brought to its knees by a guy who just refused to eat. That's it. They couldn't win. They couldn't beat him. So that's persuasion. That's persuasion. He just told them you have to leave and there's nothing you can do. This is very interesting. So how does one do this? How does one remove violence? Because that's more powerful. You read all the stories. We were reading Beric the Briton, and Beric the Briton's a good one too, because there's a lot of violence in that, but often he's actually just persuading people, talking with people, dealing with people. In fact, Beric ends up winning the freedom of England from Rome, not by fighting the Romans in the end, but actually by becoming their friends and then becoming the Roman, becoming the Roman chief of England, essentially. You know what I mean? And it's very interesting, so we just don't, in our society now, all of the movies and everything are geared towards solving your problems with violence, even though in reality, that's not how you solve your problems. It's actually insane. Like if you're at school, you don't solve your problems like punching someone in the face, But now, like, revenge is like considered to be the ultimate thing. Like people do those, they do those videos often, where they try and get someone to try and steal something, but they've booby-trapped it. Like I've seen it before, someone trying to steal a bike, but they've actually taken out the middle of the bike. So once they ride a certain distance, the bike just collapses,
Or like sit on the chair and it's actually on a spring.
Yeah. Yeah, you go, but all the
goes straight through the seat.
Oh, that just sounds horrible. I remember the first guy to do that was the glitter bomb guy. He was the one who made that all really popular. He was like an engineer, really intelligent, clearly very intellectually brilliant guy. I think he worked for NASA actually, and he got annoyed at people's packages being stolen off their steps, so he decided to make. Remember, he made the glitter bomb package. So he put there's a package and it had a giant fan in it that just exploded and then shot glitter absolutely everywhere. I thought that one was all right because no one really got hurt. I thought it was quite nice. It was like, so and you'd see the person, all the little cameras in it, so they'd steal it and they'd get it. And then they'd bring it back to their house and then they'd open it up and it'd go, yeah, just shoot glitter over their entire room. Yeah, and I remember that was like the first guy to do it. And it was actually it wasn't that, no one was getting hurt. It was actually kind of funny. It was like, oh yeah, and I'll never forget the guy being like, what the hell? His room's just covered in glitter, But the ones I see now, they're so violent. It's like a guy is getting caught and then he gets hurt, really hurt. I'm like, why? Why? Oh, you got what's coming to you. And so it's violence. And what does that do? That just creates more violence. Our prison system is just based upon violence. Someone does a crime and then we put them into this horrible, violent place where no one cares about them. They just become more violent. There's no persuasion there. But even though the reality is a mother can do more to persuade her son by never even lifting a finger than everyone else beating, yelling and swearing and having a go at him. You know what I mean? Just a woman, for instance, has way more sway over a man than all the violent guys around him through fear. Yeah, love has 10 times the persuasive power of violence. Always. People don't remember there's that famous comment: "Is it better to be loved or feared?" Do you know what I mean? I can't remember where that originally comes from. It sounds like Shakespeare. Let's be honest. I'm sure someone's quoted in a movie, but I bet you anything it comes from Shakespeare. Is it better to be loved or feared? I think it's from Macbeth actually. He does give a speech where he talks a bit about that. But, is it better to be loved or feared? To control the whole kingdom through fear is horrible because it means you have to control it through violence, and then you're always afraid of the violence that will be enacted upon you eventually. Whereas through love, it's the opposite. The people love you. As C.S. Lewis describes in Narnia beautifully, to be first in the vanguard of assault, to lead your men first into battle, and to be last in retreat. You know what I mean? That's not how it is now. Look at how the battles are fought nowadays. The guy running who's doing the battle is sitting was it 5,000 miles away? And he says, yep, order the strike. That's it. We're going to blow up Yemen or whatever. Or blow up one of them bloody, those damn one of those damn eastern countries. You know what I mean? Take them down. We're in the Middle East. Bang. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got him, man. I got him. And like, whereas before it's like, yeah, he said the king needs to be first in attack and last in retreat, meaning he protects his men, he loves his men, he lives with his men. That's why when you hear about the story of Robin Hood, yeah, and they talk about Richard the Lionheart, and his men loved him, they adored him because he was like that. Richard the Lionheart. That was why do you think he's got the name Richard the Lionheart? Because he was first in attack and last in retreat. Because and they talked about him. He used to eat his meals with his men on the field.
Was he a real person?
Yeah. He was. This is what I mean. It's based on historical stories. It's not completely factual because a lot of romanticism in it. But at the same time, you know what I mean. We actually know a guy had an experience that he was Robin Hood in the past life. He's just the most. He's like a computer guy. He's just such a dog. It's quite funny. Not swarthy or swami at all. He used all those values in that lifetime. He's just the most. Oh man, I can't go into the guy, but he's just such a whack job. It was Monty, Anyway, but So anyway, as I was saying, so this persuasion comes from love. Yeah, comes from love, and so it's interesting. People actually, the enemies of serenity and love are lust and anger specifically. Yeah, very much so. Anger being the opposite of serenity and lust with love. But they're actually confused with each other, which I think is insane. But hold with me, it happens all the time. People confused anger and love. Like when a person gets into a jealous rage, people believe that that's love. I loved her so much. Ugh, you know what I mean? I'm just mad because I love her. Yeah, I'm mad because that other guy's with her and I love her. Yeah, I love my kids so much. Don't fucking go near him or I'll kill you. You know what I mean? I remember that guy had all his my sister's father's got all of his kids' names tattooed on his body. It's a, what do you call it? It's a common thing for a very specific type of Australian bogan. To get to get your kids' names tattooed on your legs or something, or pictures them tattooed, or like handprints, tattooed.
The birthday. You got to get the birthday as well.
What's that?
You get the name and their birthday.
Oh, there you go. In Roman numerals, you know what I mean? And you get it tattooed like right here, you know what I mean? Under your heart. Like, yeah, man, really important. I really care a lot about Jo. She's a lovely daughter. And my other daughter, Jolene. They're really, really good. I actually got them tattooed backwards just in case I would forget their names because I fucking love them.
You got all the mums.
Yeah. Got the mums with big crosses. What's the famous one? The famous one is Sylvester Stallone, who had his wife tattooed on his arm, and when he broke up with her, he had it transformed into a dog. So he's got his dog, and he had, like you can cover a tattoo with another tattoo. So he had the tattoo changed into a picture. He got a picture of his dog, like similar aspect ratio to his wife, and then had it transformed into the dog. It's just like, that's so sad. You know what I mean? It's just such a sad situation to listen to. So, but people confuse this. So remember I said here, love has within it power, glory, and triumph. A person who has real love and true serenity within themselves has power. And I mean real power. Anger's power comes from like aggression and violence. I'm more powerful than you. Shut up. Don't tell me that. Get out of my face, I remember when I was riding my bike once with quite young. I don't know, Dante might have been on his bike, but I had kids on the bike.
Lily.
Yeah, Lily was on the bike. Yeah, and we were riding, and this guy just like tried to push me. It was an old man. He tried to push me off the bike, like off the path, because we were just riding along, and the path was plenty wide enough for the two of us. But he actually tried to push me off the path. I had like a child on the bike. Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, and it was tricky because Dante was riding. He was quite young, and I was on a bicycle, and I had her on the back seat, or front seat or something. And it was like, yeah, he just tried to push me off the bike, like tried to push me off into the road. He tried to push me into the road, and just started swearing his head off. You need to be on the. like that, you know, even though there was plenty of space, but he came at me and actually tried to push me into the road. And I had, and he pushed me into Dante, into it. Luckily, like there was a tree there and I hit the tree. But otherwise I would have gone straight into the traffic. It was amazing. It was really dangerous. I had the child on the back. I caught off. I was like, what are you doing? I got my child here. And he just started coming to attack me again. I was amazed. I was just amazed at his anger. He was just that raw, grumpy old man. There was nothing, he didn't even care. He didn't see anything apart from just his little reasons he's grumpy. Yeah? Facebook is full of people like that. Just teeming with it. Yeah? Just attacking people for no reason. And so, you know, but you feel as though it gives you, you know, power, glory, and triumph. Oh, I triumph over my enemies when I push them into the road. You know? But in reality, you're actually completely weak. You're at the behest of anger. Whereas a person who's has true force within themselves is immovable. The example of Gandhi is perfect. He has perfect persuasion from within himself, a perfect center of gravity within himself, yeah? So within himself, he's created a center of gravity through his own psychological work. The man clearly did some level of psychological work in that lifetime to create within himself a complete center of gravity, not moved by fear, pain, and etc. of everybody else. Yeah. So, yeah, what he does, yeah, in that sense, he created within himself a complete center of gravity. And you may see that a person like that is immovable. Do you know what I mean? And they're not violent. The Dalai Lama are a beautiful example of that. No matter how hard they try to attack him publicly, everything, no one can do anything to him. He's an immovable object. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever seen that? You ever seen like a, they do those tests where they like slam a car into something?
Yeah.
And like, they slam a car into, or like, you know, in the movies where a Superman gets hit by a car and he just stands there and the whole car wraps around him and blows up and he's just like looking at it. Like, that's what the Dalai Lama is like in social circumstances. No one can do anything. They attack him, they throw things, they blow him up, and he just stands there and nothing even, he's invulnerable. Why is he invulnerable? Because he has within himself force, real force, not force that's based on other people telling me that I'm a cool guy, force that's based on pride, yeah, not force that's based on fear, causing fear to other people to be afraid of me, like the bikies and all that sort of stuff. They're just full of fear and they create fear in everyone else. But in reality, they have no real, like, true force, yeah, comes from within the being. It's actually within, to perceive the force of the being. It's actually, the Dalai Lama has that because he actually has the soul incarnated. He has the superior existential body of the soul. Do you understand? The causal body within himself. So he's immovable. Samael was immovable. All the things they tried to do to Samael in his time and nothing worked because he was immovable. But you don't become immovable by being just a grumpy old man. You don't become immovable by being rude. Usually that person is also, at the same time as being immovable, has serenity and love in spades. Dalai Lama being a perfect example. Super serene. Yeah? Super serene. Super happy. Yeah? And as I said, when he destroys people, he does so in a gentle way. Have you ever seen the martial art of Aikido?
Yeah.
You ever seen Aikido?
I used to when I was 10.
Ah, yeah. I did it too. Yeah, Aikido. You ever seen it done? It's very gentle. And Aikido was created by a woman. Yeah, I think it was actually a man, sorry. But it was created for women specifically in its beginning as a way to put down their husbands who came back from war after losing. Remember, the Japanese lost the war. Yeah, the Second World War, they lost. And not only did they lost, they were humiliated on the world stage. They were absolutely destroyed. The war ended with their country being just blown to smithereens, remember? And so you can imagine what it was like for the men who came back. They would have been full of pain, shame. You understand what I mean? And then what are they going to be doing? Going out and getting drunk and coming back violent because you've been in the war. And so the women wanted to be able to subdue their husbands without hurting them. And what's interesting about Aikido, I did Aikido for a while and I stopped doing it because I was too violent. And instead I did ninjutsu, the martial art where you learn to kill people and gouge out their eyeballs and kick them in the testicles and choke them and all this sort of stuff. And is there a glass bottle? You better put it in his face. You know? Like, and it was just horrible. It's like, now he's on the ground, kick him in the stomach. You know what I mean? And spit on him. I was like, whoa. And I actually stopped doing that because I came home just so bruised. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was going to school and I was just like, ow. But I remember when I did Aikido, it was just so gentle. You put a person down, but they don't actually get hurt. like you sort of you spin them around. They use that for, you know, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Everything Aang does is based partially on two different martial arts, and one of them is Aikido. The idea of putting a person down but not hurting them. In other words, putting a person to the ground but where they would get to retain their dignity. You know what I mean? So someone attacks you, and you just like that, and then they just take the weapon back and then just go, okay, you need to stop. And then they attack, and you just redirect them. They're not hurt at all, and you just redirect them and go, okay, well, calm down.
It's
Calm
similar to Wing Chun, which is what Bruce Lee learned.
Yes.
His master, and they said like to use the minimal amount of effort where you actually use the opponent's strength against them.
Yes.
And it was created by women.
Yes, there you go.
Similar. Yeah.
Yes, and same thing. And then Bruce Ee turned a Jeet Kune Do, which was extraordinarily violent. It's like punch him in the face over and over again as many times as humanly possible. But anyway, so it's interesting, isn't it? So I like that. So you're actually redirecting the person. To me, I'm trying to say, like, psychologically, that's what it means to have a real center of gravity. And that's what you do. When you learn Aikido, you sort of develop a center of gravity. I remember a guy saying that in the Hara, and then you actually move around that center constantly, and everything just shifts around your center like that. And it's all very simple. But it's designed again. Yeah, what I was trying to say is that's just like what it's like to actually have a true force within yourself. Then everything else just moves around. I'm not trying to put people down, not trying to hurt them. At the same time, I have my own force. So as we said, anger and lust is the opposite of this. Yeah, we feel like we create that. The woman with her lust feels like she has power because through her lust, she gets power over the men. You know, through her, she then has the glory of being, desired by men, if you understand what I mean. Then other women go, oh, look, she's desired by men, yeah? And then the same thing. And she feels like she's winning love or triumph, but in reality, she's not. She's actually becomes a slave of her own desires. Then she can no longer actually be happy because she becomes a slave of the vanity. And then even if she does find a real man who she can be in love with, she can't be in love with him because she's spending all her time still sustaining the vanity. And she'll die looking after her vanity rather than being with the man, if you understand what I mean. And so this is sad. But even though she came in there originally looking for love, she ends up dying alone, even with a person, because it was the wrong path. So if we want power, glory, and triumph, it must be through love. Yeah, we must learn to love. And what is a form of love? Compassion. Yeah. Compassion is one of the roads of love. So when it means to love one another, learn to feel compassion for your enemy. Like the way of Aikido, yeah, we put the person down because he has a problem and we just want to move him out of our way so he doesn't hurt me or him. Not to put him down and then break his neck, and he'll never come at you again, will he? Break both his wrists. Like I remember, I met a guy once, super weird. We used to have these neighbors and they were like so dysfunctional and codependent. But they kept inviting us over. Like the guy got a bit sort of weirdly interested in spending time with me. And he used to come around, he used to drop around all the time. He's a really weird guy. But anyway, they kept wanting us to go. So I remember we went to their house once when they finally moved and bought their own house. And oh my God, like, it felt like one of those TV shows, like Arrested Development or something, where just everything is like painful, like where everything people are saying is actually just awkward and painful, And anyway, it was like a baby shower, and he didn't have a lot of friends, this guy, because he was a bit weird. And so he invited us over, and then I think he invited a lot of other people that didn't show up. And then this other guy showed up, and he was a bouncer. He was a security guard at a nightclub, and he was a weird guy. He was really tall and big and just had a tiny head. Like he looked like, you guys seen Super Mario Bros, the movie from the 80s? He looked like a Goomba. He was just so big, and he also wore really big clothes to make himself look even bigger. Like it was the middle of summer, he had like a bomber jacket on. I'm like, Jesus, mate. And anyway, I remember he started telling, like, we're at a baby shower. Like, just take a moment, right? We're at a baby shower. There is a beautiful little baby on the ground. It was like a post. I guess it's still not. Is it still a baby shower when the baby's already born?
Yeah, before.
Before, okay. It wasn't. I don't know. It was a showing of the baby, something like that. But yeah, but it was more like, it was still more of a shower. We're all bringing gifts, and let's say they hadn't had a baby shower. We were having a post baby shower. I don't know. Anyway, So she had a few friends, some women who were there, her sister and stuff, who were sort of chatting. And then this guy started telling a story, and he was like sitting in he went and sat in one of the chairs and put his hands in his thing, and he starts like being like, he's chewing gum. He's all in black. He's got those, and he's worn his shoes inside. Like, we all took our shoes off, and he's wearing those huge, like, steel cap boots, like army boots like that. He's like, and then he just starts talking about what he did at work the night before. And it was like, there's a beautiful little newborn baby on the ground. Dante was tiny. I think it was just Dante at that time. Dante's this sort of another little baby, just being adorable, eating avocados and bananas, and really adorable. And they've got this mat out, and everyone's fighting. The kids are just playing with toys, and like tiny baby interactions are quite beautiful. The essence is just there, and he's like, and he goes, he goes, so this guy, last night, it's crazy. And like, no one's even asked him how his day was. No one's even asked him. And he just sits there, he's like, and he literally goes, this guy goes, he starts coming on, and he starts having a go at me, and rah, and he's carrying on and telling me it's time to go to the club. And he puts his finger on my face. He puts his hand on my face. I just grab the wrist, break it straight away. And we're just like, oh my God. And he said, then he goes, I've really been trying to try this new technique for a while. So I threw him down, and I got his neck, and I threw him straight on the stairs. Like, got it right in there. And it was just, I could just hear the crack. It was just perfect. And like, it was just perfect, right? And he goes, and then, can you believe it? Bloody missus starts coming at me. Thinks I'm not going to go at her just because she's a girl. She learned. She knew another thing coming, eh? She learned. Yeah. I taught her good, eh? And it was just like... So basically, he beat up this guy and hospitalized him dramatically after the guy turned around and said, don't touch me like that way. He broke his wrist and then threw him downstairs and probably broke his clavicle and a whole bunch of other stuff. And when his girlfriend was like, oh my God, what are you doing? He beat her up as well. And this was at a baby's, and Ruby was just like, and Ruby just like collects both of the babies and then just walks out of the room. she just picks up the babies and is just like, and he's, just to be clear, he's just getting started, and this just continues, and I'm just like sitting there being like, and like our friend Mitch is like, oh yeah, some women, right? And I'm just like, oh my god, oh my god, I didn't know. It's just the impression was just so dense, and it was so conflicting with the environment. And he just kept going, Oh my god. So he feels like this gives him power and force, but it's not. Yeah, it's the opposite. He's completely under the thumb of his own anger and his own egos. His egos have complete control of him. He actually psychopathically enjoys torturing his fellow man. He actually basically admitted that he enjoys being able to try out vicious and violent fighting and martial arts techniques. He's been designing his own techniques. And he's allowed to, and he laughed about it. He's like, it's so funny, I get to try these techniques. Some stuff you never get to try, but in my position, it's great. Things have changed a little. I don't think you can be nearly as violent. But this guy was unhinged, I think is the right word. He enjoyed violence. He reminded me of a little bit of like, was it near the movie Natural Born Killers? Like, what's his name?
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah. Except just the look in his eyes, that just insanity. Like, and he was bald too. Just like him, just the look in his face. It was like, wow, this kid, I mean, considering the tiny head and the weird body, I think he probably got bullied a lot in school. But my lord, horrible, So full of violence, trying to solve my problems through violence, This is animalistic. That makes you into an animal. You've become an animal. That's what you are. You've become the animal. It's all fight or flight. Fear, take him down, put him down. Have you ever seen like animals fight before? That's how they are. One of them grabs the other one and like holds it on the ground until the other one's like, it's like, and then it like kind of hobbles off. You're putting yourself back into the animal kingdom. You migrated out of there through the transmigration of souls, but you're going back there. because this fire has you. The lunar fire burns within and you can't control it. So, yeah. So as we said, this is what it means to have serenity, to have love, to have a center of gravity, to learn within myself how to quell that, how to actually work with the highest part of the person. You know what I mean? How to feel compassion for my fellow man. How to feel compassion. That's love. Yeah, in a different form, but to feel compassion for my fellow man who is completely conquered by his defects. How can I help him while still allowing him to be dignified? Do you understand what I mean? That's what we want. We want to. We're always sort of fantasizing about, coming out on top, about destroying the other person publicly, telling them what for. I had to tell that guy what. I had to tell him what was going on. Even Gnostics talk like that. Oh, I'd tell him what was going on. Come on. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. How do I talk to him while and we both retain our dignity? Dignity is the opposite of pride. Dignity is something that flows from the being. It's the natural feeling of our own. It's the natural feeling that we're both spiritual beings. That's to be dignified. To understand inside yourself that you are a spiritual being, a spiritual essence, that comes from a being, and that I must maintain his dignity on earth. That's dignity. How can I? Because there are moments where you have to tell someone off, or where you have to. But how can I do it where we both walk away dignified? Do you understand what I mean? This is persuasion. And when I meet people like that, I'm always amazed. Because sometimes, like when you see like a thing go wrong in public, like someone gets hurt or something, and there's always someone who starts trying to like blame everyone. Oh, it's this guy's fault. What are you doing there? Oh, bloody hell, they should change all this. And I love it. Sometimes they'll I love it when someone level-headed comes in and goes, whoa, let's just see why this person's hurt first. You know what I mean? Oh, I didn't do it. He did it. His fault. Okay, everyone shut up. The person's hurt, so let's try and sort them out first. And see, you're okay? Are you all right? Okay, well, let's get you to the hospital and then we'll sort that out. Do you know what I mean? They just start to actually look at what's important. Yes?
Perfect example. When I spoke to Raphael once, he told me essentially a defect I need to work on. But because it wasn't coming from the ego in him. It was just so it was clearly this love. There was no offense. I didn't take offense to him saying you need to work on this thing. Do you know what I mean? There was no reaction on my part to that. Whereas someone else who's got the ego, you'd be like, oh, what are you trying to say, mate? Yeah.
What did that person say to me? Wasn't to me. They were talking about someone else. They were told off by their missionary. And the missionary actually told them off for just. It was just bad behavior in the class. They weren't controlling their children. Their children were running amok and causing problems. And they said, you got to sort your kids out. And they were just like, oh, how dare you say that to me? And they were really upset. And then later on, they wanted an apology from their missionary for telling them off. Oh, you made me feel really bad. And the person said, yeah, but your kids are causing a big problem. Right. They said, yeah, but you came to me with so much anger. I said, yeah, but your kids were causing a problem. I had to tell you off. And they go, look. And I like what they said. They go, I understand that I had a defect, but you've been in Gnosis longer than me, so you need to work on your defect first, and then I'll work on mine. That's what they said. They said, I'll work on mine after you work on yours because you're in a higher position than me. that was their justification. When everyone else was going to them saying, you need to drop this because the person is actually sort of right. They're like, oh yeah, but they need to work on themselves first. Just sort of, it's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit painful. So yeah. Okay, let's just finish up because it's getting late. So the axiom is content in hope, long in suffering, be constant in prayer. I think that's pretty straightforward. It's funny because it runs quite contrary to the card, which is all about how great everything is, and then you have this. Whereas you read some of the other ones, and I think the one on the back of Tarot card 5 is actually very positive. It's yes, victory and power and all this stuff. And the one on the back of 11, which is a great card, is content in hope, long in suffering. So nothing's coming your way, but just keep praying and it will come there eventually. It's quite a harsh axiom, if you understand what I mean. But it's also showing you how to be in the right state, if you understand what I mean. The right state for a person to be in to achieve this is like this. We need to be content just in our hope. People are never content in hope. They always want right now. I want to be, that's the big problem with the young generation. I'm not going to get a job. just doing anything because I want to be earning a influencer stupid $1 million wage or something right away. I'm not content in hope. You know, so I'm not content just hoping that eventually things will come my way, or that something will work out, or hoping that that the being will come to me, or hoping that God will listen to me, or hoping that I have no content in my hope. Yeah. Instead, I'm just I'm the opposite. I feel dejected and upset that things aren't just going my way. Long in suffering. That's just life. That's it. You have hope, but there's always going to be long suffering. Yeah? But be constant in prayer. Always asking internally to work. I've noticed that as a missionary for now 17 years, I will say that constant in prayer is definitely the greatest advice you can give to anyone. This is the greatest advice you can give to anyone on the long term of being a Gnostic person. Being a successful Gnostic. This. Be content in your hopes. Yeah? Be aware that your sufferings will be constant and long. This is the way it is. You will always have difficulty. Always pray. This is it. When I've wanted things to change in a mission, in a situation, I've started to pray and it has always worked. It's funny that prayer is usually our last resort, which is unfortunate because it's very powerful. I will tell you straight away, the reason why Raphael's so successful is that he is constant in prayer. I lived with him for 6 weeks, and I tell you, he prays a lot. A lot. He's always at the altar praying. Always. I'd live with him. Yeah, and he's always praying for something, this, that. If he wants to work with he told me that, if he wants to work with a specific group or something, he starts praying that the being will allow him to do so. You know, he prays to be given the opportunity rather than forcing his own way into things. You know, the same thing. If he wants help with someone, he prays for help. I've seen that. Elements of prediction. I already said them. The tamed lion, of course, which means the law on our side, and also the taming of the animal passions. Fate of the law, have no fear. Beautiful card. If you draw it, good luck. One of the best cards you can draw. Wonderful. Anyway, we can give a whole retreat on this, so we'll just leave it there. Any questions? Happy?